Hey everybody, this is the Slightest Review, and today I'm here to talk to you about a character who is, I guess one could say, the matriarch of The Walking Dead, the backbone of The Walking Dead, the leader of The Walking Dead, and that is Rick Grimes. Rick Grimes was the true leader of The Walking Dead in every survival group that he's ever been in. He is the hero of our show. He is the protagonist. He is the man who's willing to do the dirty work and willing to make the hard decisions in life. And he'll do anything, and I do mean anything, to keep his family and to keep his friends safe. But most importantly, keep his family safe. If he has to bite a man on the neck and rip his flesh off, he'll do it. He does not care. If he has to take another person's home and live there with his group and tell that person, this is just how it's going to be, he'll do it for survival reasons. But he wasn't always like that. He was once an extremely nice and caring man. And he was a family man. He was a sheriff's deputy. And, it's just like this traumatic event where the dead started walking changed this man's life forever, and it changed it for the worse, to the point where this man's psyche is so damaged, so broken, that it constantly shifts and flip-flops. One season he's a nice guy, the next season he's a little more grumpier, the next season he's completely psychotic in the head, the next season he's back to being a nice guy again, and then the next season he's a mixture of both being normal and crazy. And the thing about The Walking Dead is that for us viewers, we assume that every season is a year. That is not true. Only a couple of months to probably a year or so passes between certain seasons. From season 1 to 4, only a couple of months towards a year has passed. That's from season 1 to 4. From season 4 to say season 8, once again, only a couple of months to maybe a year at best, that makes up the combination of a year, has passed. So for the most part, from season 1 to say 8, maybe only 2, maybe a year and a half, 2.5 years, close to 3 probably, has passed. And that's only from season 1 to 8. But then we know for sure in season 9 it starts off with a time jump of 5 years. So if this man's personality is constantly flip-flopping and shifting and changing, then that means only one thing. Just like the title of this show says, or video I should say, this is the tragic life of Rick Grimes. Now I know what you must be asking yourself. Well, what constantly is causing this man's psyche to shift and change? What traumatic events is going through his life? Well, for starters, there's a huge outbreak where the dead comes back to life and it just starts eating people. And if it bites you, then you turn into one of them. Now on the show they call them walkers. For us, we just call them zombies. And these things are spread throughout the entire world to where mankind barely exists. And with that, for those that are surviving, of course, come some of the more out there personalities. People who will betray their own friends, people who will betray their own family members, complete strangers that will steal what you have, complete strangers that will just kill you and then steal what you have, and then complete strangers who are just so chaotic and sick, sadistic, evil, that they feel that the world is changed so much to where it's now you can do whatever you want and you can take whatever you want at any means necessary. And there's all these different fractions that it has caused this man and his whole group to just like at times go like nuts or get extremely aggressive. Like I said before, Rick has done things that he never imagined in life he will ever have to do. Now, the same can be said about anybody on The Walking Dead. For this show, personalities constantly flipping and flopping and shifting and changing. But for now, we're just going to focus only on Rick because that's what my video is about. And Rick has endured so much pain mentally and physically from his group that he's surviving with, his family, his best friend, complete and random strangers. And it's to the point where this man is finding it hard to trust just about anybody. And when you don't trust nobody, then that's when the paranoia sits in. And then you start making decisions that aren't necessarily so great. And the problem with Rick, since he's the main person to make all these decisions, he's not always making the best ones. He has the great intentions, but things normally just backfire. And they backfire because his group has different personalities and different wants and needs. And then there's the complete strangers that are just plain out evil. And pretty much every stranger this man and his group meets is evil. They rarely find anybody who's nice. And it's kind of like the whole world is pretty much just dead and evil now because people are just doing whatever they want and taking whatever they want. And it's so hard to just trust anybody. And the problem with Rick is that he's never truly at peace for that long. If he ever does get like a glimmer, a shimmer of happiness or hope, it is quickly taken away from him because of all the events that are going around in the new world. And the thing is, a person's mind has to heal. A person has to rest. And Rick is literally carrying the entire show on his shoulders. Well, the events of the show, I should say. And it's just so much stress for one person. So I don't blame him for going crazy from time to time. We would all do that ourselves if we had to do that. And part of the reason why he has to carry everything on his shoulders is because the group that he was initially with, a lot of them were kind of spineless. A lot of them didn't want to do the heavy lifting. As time passed on, they started to grow and evolve, and then they started to help with the heavy lifting. But then there was always conflict because there was always there was always an antagonist to our protagonist. But even before the world went dead, he was starting to have problems. See, let's start from the very beginning. Rick, like I said, was a family man, a very nice guy. He wouldn't do anything to hurt like another living soul. And he always respected people, and he always respected life. And he was married to a woman named Lori, and they have a son named Carl. Or as he likes to say, Carl! And so, like, with him and Lori, they loved each other. You know, they were high school sweethearts and stuff. But the thing with them is, like I said, because he's so nice, even when they get into an argument, he doesn't like raising his voice. He doesn't like getting pissed at her. He kind of just want to quell the situation. That gets on her nerves. She just wants him to like flip out from time to time, and she complains about that. But the thing is, she doesn't realize just how good she's having it. She has a man who takes care of her, because from what we know, she doesn't have a job. She has a son that she loves. He brings home the bacon. He never hits her. He never raises his voice at her. He never like questions her. So she has it made, and she doesn't appreciate that. And on top of that, what he doesn't know is that his best friend is madly in love with his wife and wants his son to be his family. But then tragedy hit. That moment he was on the job and he was trying to apprehend a suspect, and that suspect shoots him because they didn't know that there was a second person within the car. So at this moment in time, you have to imagine, here's this man who loves his family and thinking to themselves, that even though he had his bulletproof vest on, he could still die, you know, and he'll never get to see his family again. That is tragic enough just thinking about that. Then he drifts off and goes to sleep. Like, could you imagine being shot, going to sleep in one location, then waking up in a hospital? And then when you wake up in the hospital, and he was there for only 2 weeks. In the comic books, he was there for 6 months. And can you imagine just waking up groggy, tired, walking through the halls of the hospital, not finding not one living soul, not finding anybody? The power's out. It's cold, it's dark, it's damp. There's blood on the floor and the walls. There are dead bodies on the floor. There are bodies that have been like ripped open and ate. Like, this man literally has no idea what has gone on. And he's scared and he's paranoid. The man is literally about to like having a mental breakdown in his head because he's trying to get like answers as he can barely walk because his body hasn't been mobile for a whole 2 weeks. And then he looks at a door with a bizarre sign on it, and next thing you know, he starts to see it like shift a little bit, and these strange fingers moving out that are like bloody and decayed. He hightails it. Cause what are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? You're not just gonna stay there and investigate with no weapon and stuff. So as he gets outside, it's like a war zone. There are like down helicopters. There are dead bodies more. This man literally has no clue what has happened. But he knows only one thing. He has to make it home. He has to find his family. That is the only priority on his mind. Forget how the world came to an end. He just knows that it has, and he has to get home. And then the moment he does get home, empty. The whole house has not one living soul in it. His entire neighborhood doesn't have not one living soul that he could see. But before he even gets home, he's in for the shock of his life. He sees his very first zombie. And in this world, like I said before, well, I don't think I said this before, in their world, they don't have zombies on TV and movies. They don't even have the term. I don't even know what kind of movie monsters they have in that world. So this is all new. This is like a demon that had to him, you know, a monster. And this monster is slowly crawling to him, trying to eat him as he's hopping on a bike and racing home. And then so when he can't find, so it's just kind of like, could you imagine what that's like? Could you seriously imagine what that's like? Where you see dead bodies everywhere and there's nobody living, and then you see this monstery looking thing just crawling towards you that's not even speaking. It's enough to make a person piss themselves, you know? And then not only that, but then to get home and see that your family's not there, your neighbors are not there, nobody is there. And then just when things are getting more grim, he actually finally sees a living person. Only to get knocked out by, well, no, actually he didn't get knocked out, I don't think. Oh yeah, he did. I think Duncan did hit him. Only to get knocked out by somebody, and then have a gun pointed on him by somebody else that he's never met. Only for him to go to sleep once again, to wake up in a strange situation. And he wakes up to find like two living people, and it should be like a joyous moment, but it's not, because these people are interrogating him and he doesn't understand why. They quickly tell him why. The world has literally turned to dead, and the dead are walking again. The world has ended. And it's like these little monsters, if they get you, and you turn into them. And so as he's trying to like process all this in his head, you gotta believe this is like pretty unbelievable, because they don't have zombie movie monsters in their world. So this is just kind of like, you know, any normal person be like, well, this isn't true. But then he saw that for a fact it is true, because that little zombie was crawling towards him that was decapitated. And so it's like the only thing that's going through his mind is, since the whole world is like dead basically, did his family survive? The only goal and mission this man has is to find his family, no matter what it takes, no matter what he has to do, what distance he has to go. And there's a little glimmer of hope because he's thinking, okay, this man can help him. Two minds are better than one. Plus, he has a son. Therefore, three minds are better than one or two in that situation. But the man doesn't want to go with him. The man is having his own trauma, his own pain, his own tragedy. His wife is now a zombie. She constantly keeps coming back to their house. And so he wants to stay there and take her out, but he can't because he loves her too much. So Rick has to go on his own and start looking for his family. And the world is vast, where is he gonna find them at? So he does what any logical person would do. He goes into town, which is the worst thing you can do in a zombie movie because the dead are there. And as he goes from house to house, running out of gas, looking for gas, he starts to see like a little zombie girl. He sees that families are committing suicide in their homes. And it's just like, this man cannot believe what he is seeing. For him, it would be something out of a horror movie, but they don't have that type of stuff in their universe. And so then when he finally gets into the city, he realizes he made the biggest mistake of his life. There are hundreds of zombies right around the corner, taking out his horse that he is on. He's having to flee. He's having to go inside and hide in a tank. And he realizes, this is it. Like, this is literally it for him. Like, there's no way out. He's never going to see his family. He's never going to know what happened to his family. And it's just like, it's a little bit of guilt because he went into the city. And then it's just like, he feels like a failure because he is not there to save the day and rescue his family that he doesn't even know is alive or dead. And just when things are getting worse and it's getting ready for him to meet his maker, he is saved by a young man he's never even met before. And then when he thinks to himself, this is great, he has another chance at life, he meets their group. And at first, they're not the friendliest type. They're pulling guns on him. They are like interrogating him. There's a woman by the name of Andrea who's very romantic at this point, and she's extremely paranoid. And so it's kind of like, in his mind, he has to defuse the situation quickly. And with this entire group, now he's thinking to himself, he has to stay with them. He has to do whatever it takes for them to help him find his family and help him navigate throughout the city. But first, he has to earn their trust. And as he does that, then he's hit with a situation. He's hit with the complete racist idiot by the name of Merle Dixon. So he goes into straight cop mode. Take care of him. And then now him and the rest of the group has to figure out how they're going to get out of there. And they figured, if you smell like a zombie, they leave you alone. So they have to start ripping apart bodies. It's something they don't want to do. And it is that moment when before he starts ripping open the body, he finds the man's driver's license. And he tells these people who this man was. And then he starts to make up a little story of who that man might have been before the world died. And then he tells them people, when he finds his son, he's going to tell his son the story of this man. Because this man made a great sacrifice for him to find his family. Of course, when he does find his son, he doesn't tell his son that, but he probably does it off camera. And then next thing you know, the most joyous and momentous occasion happened. This group is actually living with his family. And when he finds them, he is ecstatic. He falls to his knees. He is just thankful that he was able to finally find the only people in the world that mean something to him. And he just can't stop hugging and kissing his family. But then that, like I said before, that joyous occasion doesn't last very long, because now he has to deal with a situation. He left Daryl's brother Merle on top of that roof, and there are zombies coming up there. So he figures, he's a man, he has to do the right thing. So he's going to make things right. So he goes with a group of people to go find Merle. And here's the problem. His wife is pissed because he's constantly leaving the group. He's never there for too long a time because there's always a situation that happens. There's always somebody needs rescuing. And with him being the nice guy that he is and a cop, his instinct is to rescue and to save. And he's always leaving his family back in the campsite where they can be vulnerable to a zombie attack. And that's exactly what happened. Before he even gets back with the group one time, the entire campsite gets attacked by zombies. And so once again, this man is filled with like anxiety and pain because now he has to go in and rescue his family. And on top of all that, he doesn't even know that when he was presumably dead for 2 weeks, his wife had an affair with his best friend. And on top of that, his son was bonding so much with his best friend that they were acting like father and son. So it's at this moment that Rick becomes the ipso facto leader of the group, which does not bode well with Shane, his best friend. And so from this point on, Rick is now making every decision in the group. He believes he's making the right decisions, and for the most part he is. It's just because the world is so chaotic that his good decision makings are backfiring on him. He goes to the CDC, and for a moment everything's great. They have a huge building that's where power is still on, but they meet this very skittish scientist doctor man, and little do they know that the place is literally about to self-destruct and blow up. And so they have to flee from there. And as they're just going through the motions, eventually they end up getting attacked by zombies. And this little girl gets scared and runs off, and he goes behind her and to try to save her. But then he makes a dumb decision and tells her to go hide in a tree or a little ditch type area, I should say, because she's not in the tree, she's like in a little ditch area. And so his first instinct should have been, okay, I just should like kill the zombie. Even she tells them to shoot him, but he's scared because he knows loud noise will attract more zombies. And this is before he became like beast mode Rick. This is back when he was scared Rick. And he was scared that if he makes a lot of loud noise, that it would bring more of them because there were tons of them on the road. And so when he tells her to go there, he tells her, at some point in time, head back to camp by your own. But she's a little scared girl. So of course, what happens, she doesn't find her way back home, and then she's lost for the remainder of the season. So now he's hit with grief and guilt because he literally told this girl to do this and do that, and she didn't, and now she is lost. And her mother, the biggest coward of the show at that time, she is constantly crying, and everybody's blaming him, and he knows everybody's blaming him for that, whether they tell him that or not. And so while looking for this girl, he's with his son, and then his son sees this deer and gets shot by a hunter by mistake because the bullet goes through the deer and hits his son. And Rick's just kind of like, oh my god, man, like what is going on? Like every time something good happens to him, something bad happens to him. Every time he finds his family gets taken away from him. He doesn't understand what the universe is trying to send him such a grim message for. Like, what is it preparing him for? But luckily, he's able to get his son the medical care that he needs. But, it's not an easy road. He's running out of blood. He's running out of medical supplies. But then when he does meet these new group of people, they are friendly, and they let them stay there for a while. But the man who stays there literally tells him, you can't stay there for long. But Rick is thinking to himself, well, he's not going to take it by force. He's going to respect this man's wishes, but he's going to try and persuade this man if he can. But then Rick, the nice guy, but he really does decide, he needs to respect this man's wishes. But the group doesn't want that. The group wants to stay. Rick can't impose himself and his group on this man's group, But they convince him to try to convince this man Herschel to stay on his farm. And, and it's just like Herschel is not really wanting these people to stay. And then when some of these people start to act a little bit temperamental, he really doesn't want them to stay. And so as he's constantly trying his best to get Herschel to let him stay there, Shane is starting to go crazy in the head. His best friend is now turning into the enemy, and what makes things worse is his wife doesn't want anything to do with Shane, but Shane wants his wife bad. And Lori tells Rick this. And Rick knows that he's going to have to make a decision. So first he tries to talk it to Shane, tell him just leave his family alone. He's his best friend and he just needs to get over them and stuff. He don't know what happened between them two. But, obviously, he knows that what happened, because they tell him and stuff. But it's like, he tells them whatever happened in the past is now over. And you have to think, when he does find out that he presumably was dead for 2 weeks, his family literally just moved on. His son was ready to have a new dad. His wife was ready to have a new husband. And it's just like, they had, like his son had a mental affair on him, and his wife had a physical affair on him. And you have to remember, there was a man who never hit his wife. He never raised his voice at her. He loved her. He gave her everything the world desired. And she cheats on him with the best friend of all people. And that's like one of the worst betrayals like ever. But he gets past that. But Shane cannot get past that. And to the point where he has to beat some sense into Shane. And that still does not work. And then, next thing you know, he finds the girl that was lost, and she is now zombified. And he knows there's only one person to blame for this. It's himself. Because he told her to go hide. He told her after a couple of minutes, head back to the camp. And, she was a tiny little girl who was scared. She couldn't do that all on her own with his monsters going around everywhere. And it's just like, and he thinks to himself, he killed that little girl. He didn't physically kill her, but she's dead because of him. And that could have been his son, And now he has to explain this to that woman's mother. So after all this, Herschel leaves and then goes to a bar. And once again, he has to leave his wife for the umpteenth time and his family to go find Herschel. That's just what Rick does. And when he finds Herschel, they are now, him, Glenn, and Herschel are now greeted by two complete strangers. And it's at that moment in time, Rick, for the first time, are meeting evil people that are living. And in his mind, he's kind of just like, they're all living. They should all get along. Why would these people want to be evil for? This will only continue throughout the entire series of the show. And then, next thing you know, Rick has finally came to that decision when it comes to Shane. Because Shane has tipped his hand. Shane is acting more aggressive and crazy. But before any of that can happen, there is a trial that has to go on. And that trial is, what do they do with this one person that tried to kill them? The two group of men, they had another group of friends, and one of them people survived and was left. And Rick now has to decide, what are they going to do with this one guy? Are they going to kill him? Are they going to keep him tied up for the rest of his life and feed him their food? Or are they going to like integrate him into their community? It's a huge debate that goes on throughout the entire cast. And this is the stuff I used to love about The Walking Dead when it was good, before it turned to crap. And so it's like this huge debate that constantly going around in circles. What do they do with this man Randall that is a supposed threat? If they let him go, he'll just bring his friends back to the farm, and then chaos will ensue. If they kill him, that's blood on their hands. If they let him live with them, there's no telling what he might do. And so this is causing a conflict between not only his group, but with his wife. Because and his best friend. Because they're like, you should do this, this, and that. And he's like, I know, but I want to do this, this, and that. I want to give this man a chance. This man does not deserve to die. He's too young for that. He's only in his early 20s. Well, the whole Randall situation turned into where Shane lures Rick into the woods to kill Rick. And Rick knows at that point in time, it's over. He is now have to make that decision. And he kills Shane. He kills his best friend. His best friend, who he's probably been best friends with since they were teenagers, I believe. In high school. Probably even longer than that. And the thing is, he feels bad because he could not save his friend. He could not save the psyche of his friend. He had to kill his friend just in order to get peace for him and his family. And then, not only that, but when he stabbed his best friend, here's the thing. He was told by Jenner that everybody's infected, but he doesn't believe him. So when he stabs Shane, he assumes that Shane's going to stay dead. But he doesn't. He rises and turns into a zombie. And his son has to shoot his best friend in the head. And it's at that moment in time he knew Jenner was right. That every single last person in the world carries this zombie strain. It's some type of form of evolution or an infection. And the entire world is plagued by it. But he withholds this information from his group until he finally tells them. And they are furious that he would keep sensitive information like that from them. But that's what leaders do. They hide sensitive information from the public so that they don't go crazy. So now his entire group has turned on him. But they still want his help for leadership. And Rick is not about to let go of his leadership roles because he now knows that these people suck and he's the only one who can take care of them. But the worst thing happened. When he tells his wife that he had to be the one to kill Shane and then Carl had to put him down, his wife is disgusted by him. She doesn't want nothing to do with him. And at that moment, he knows that she still loves Shane. She still loves his best friend. He is beside himself. He cannot believe that she would do this. After all he gave her, after all he did for her, he killed his best friend for her. And she doesn't want nothing to do with him. On top of that, his group has turned on him. But then Rick decides, you know what? Screw it. He is the judge, jury, and now the executioner. And he has taken full reins of the group, and they are going to do what he says. And if they don't want to, he literally told them, get out. And send him a postcard. That was the funniest line ever. I love that line. I miss the old Walking Dead. So after that moment, several months have passed. because winter has now passed. And let's just say the relationship between him and his wife is non existent at this point in time. It is now that she is pregnant and he doesn't want anything to do with her. And she wants him back, but he will not even speak to her because he doesn't know if that's his child inside her belly. Because at this point in time, this man is just this. He just has had enough with his wife. He could not believe that she turned her back on him, and then now there's a child in there that might be his, might not. You know, if the world had never like died out, they probably would have been divorced by now, separated or something, and they would have moved on. But they can't because he has to still take care of his son, and he has to take care of this group, and there's still dead people trying to eat them, and living people trying to kill them. And so, as he's giving her the cold shoulder, once again, he's having to do the hero thing and clear out an entire jail cell full of like walkers. But then he meets a bunch of prisoners, and things go kind of chaotic after that. And it's to the point where he's starting to be where he's not very that trusting, and it's kind of like if you do wrong, he'll take you out. And this causes a problem with one of the inmates, to where huge chaos happens, and he is separated from his wife. She ends up giving birth to a child, and then she dies from childbirth. He is beside himself with lots of grief because all she told him she wanted was him. She wanted him back. And he told her, well, you can't have me back, you know, 'cause you just discussed him right now and everything. She discusses him and everything. And it's just like, he just thinking in his mind, if he just would have stopped acting stubborn, if he just would have taken her back when she wanted him back, he could have protected her. Or at the least, he could have been there to say goodbye. And he wasn't able to do that. And once again, his son had to be the one to take her fully out by a bullet to the head so she wouldn't turn. It is at that point in time, Rick's mind is gone. He becomes completely nutty buddy in the head, and he has lost all sense of reality. He has gone nuts. And he doesn't care what's going on in the outside world because he has switched off. And his group desperately needs him because they are about to face a threat worse than the zombies. And that threat is that of the governor. Out of every bad guy in The Walking Dead, I truly believe the governor was probably the worst of the worst because this man, not only was he calculated and cold, he did it in a very charming way where you don't suspect he's a bad guy unless you actually see it happens. He's just this cheerful guy's guy, you know? He tells you what you want to hear. And then he later betrays you because he is pure evil. And he has an entire army that will do whatever he wants. Even when things goes bad, they will still follow him to the grave. And so as Rick is going crazy in the head, things are now brewing with the governor and his group. To the point where when Rick is starting to have hallucinations. He's seeing his dead wife. The phone he believes is ringing, and it's dead people that he knew that are calling him. He has completely switched out, and the only thing that has switched him back on was gunfire, him getting shot at by the governor and their people. It's at that moment in time Rick knows that, okay, it's time to stop being nutty buddy and it's time to go back to being the leader. And he does that. But as he's doing that, he's still having visions of his dead wife and stuff. And so he knows he's going to need an army of his own, and he doesn't have much people. He's going to need weapons, and he knows exactly where to get them. Back in the place where he left them, back home. And there he finds his old confidant, his old mentor, Morgan. And with Morgan, it's kind of like he feels like he kind of has a fighting chance, or at least a little bit of his old home, because Morgan's back from his old hometown. Morgan is the one who taught him what zombie or what walkers are, and how to avoid them and how to kill them and everything else. He was his mentor. But his mentor has lost his mind, worse than Rick has, because his mentor has lost both his wife and his son. And Rick sees this, and he's just like, he knows exactly what this man is going through. He has gone through that himself. And Rick is kind of like, if I didn't snap out of it, I would have still been like this dude. So it's from that moment on, Rick decides it's time for him to get focused. He can't let the new world affect him to the way that where he loses his sanity. With this whole revelation of the governor, now Merle's back in the picture, and Daryl wants to leave, and now he has this new woman named Michonne, who the group wants to keep, but the governor wants. And the governor wants, when the governor wants her, what he's gonna do to her. Rick knows this, but Rick's kind of like, what, if I just give this woman to him, then my people will be safe. And Rick is having a debate. What do I do? Do I still be this good man? Or do I be the man who's going to do whatever it takes for him and his people to survive? After getting a good down-to-earth talk with Herschel, Rick has decided he's not going to give her up. And he's going to fight this governor and do whatever it takes for his people to survive. And that's what happens. He fights this dude off. He meets a whole bunch of new friends. But something tragic once again happens. See, when the world died, his son Carl was no longer raised by him. He was then raised by Shane. And his son Carl has now turned into a gun-toting, cold-blooded murderer who will kill a man who is pleading for his life. When Rick finds this out, he doesn't even believe it. But then he comes to the realization that his son has changed, and he has to change his son back. So in the next season, season 4, he decided, you know what? Both him and Carl are going to give up their guns, and they're going to become farmers. And he's going to let the group have a council to decide the big decisions. And that's exactly what happens. For a lot of weeks to a couple of months, Rick and his son are just being farmers. And, everything's good until a virus hit. And until one of his own turns into a murderer. This causes conflict throughout the group, and he has to banish her. And as this is going on, the hard decision making start coming again with this man, because the governor is still alive, and the governor is coming back with a fury of vengeance and a bigger army and a whole lot more guns, a tank. Everything that Rick has fought for, everything Rick has cried over, sweat over, bled over, is now being taken away. The governor destroys Rick's new home. His entire group is completely separated. Some of the people that he knew and loved are dead. Herschel is now dead. And so the whole group has to scatter, and they are separated. And when they are separated this time, they decide they're just going to go their own ways. They're not even going to look for everybody else. So now it's just Rick and Michonne and Carl. But the problem is, Michonne... No, wait. It's not Rick and Michonne and Carl. My bad. It's actually just Rick and Carl. And not only that, but they don't even know where Judith, his new baby girl, is at, because she gets lost in all the chaos that's happening. And on top of all that, Rick has been beaten and bloody so bad that he's slipping in and out of consciousness. And as that's going on, Carl is just letting him have it. Carl hates him. Carl likes Shane more. Carl is mad that his mom is dead. Carl is blaming his dad for everything and wishes that he would just die. And Rick does almost just die. When Rick comes back to, Carl has a change of heart. Now, when Rick was unconscious, was he able to hear what everything Carl was saying? I have no idea. But everything seems to be groovy with them. Later on, he meets up with Daryl and Michonne again, and they're starting to get their little family back together, but they still have lost a lot of people. And they decide they're gonna go to this place called Terminus that's supposed to be like this little refugee camp. They are attacked by a group of people, and one of the people in the group are gonna kill them off slowly, but one of these men is gonna try to take advantage of little Carl, and you know what I mean by that. Rick decides that this ain't gonna happen. He has to escape these people by any means necessary. He can't get to his weapon. The only weapon he has is his mouth, and he uses it. He bites this man on the throat or on the neck, and he rips this man's throat out and spits it out. And then they kill that group. Now back to the church. They're now being pursued by the Terminus people. And the pastor, when he sees these people kill the Terminus people, Rick's group, he couldn't believe how barbaric they were. Rick has no mercy. Rick has no love for the living no more. Rick is now becoming a bad guy. He is slowly becoming the antagonist of the show. Only at this point in time, Rick has gotten to the point where he doesn't trust people no more. He just don't. So he devised a plan. He's gonna hide his weapons out in the open. He's gonna snoop around into Terminus, check it out. But these people get the upper hand because they are well organized, and they put them in these giant like truck unit things. And Rick has decided, you know what? I'm done being a nice guy. It's time to show these people who they're messing with. And then he finds out that these people are cannibals. And he just can't believe it. It's just like the world has become so evil that people will become cannibals. After a huge diversion by one of his group members that he shunned, him and his other group members are now able to fight their way off. And as they're rescuing themselves, they are now out in the open. They have no campsite. They have no cars. They have nothing. And this is when survival mode comes into Rick. This is when Rick is now starting to turn into what he hates the most, a bad guy. Rick is at the point where he will now take anything by force if need be. Rick is now a changed man. His appearance has now changed. He has this thick beard, like he looks like a grizzly beast man, because he is now in beast mode. And he finds this pastor man who's living in a church all by himself. Rick decides, well, you know what? This church is big enough for him and his group, and he's going to take it. But he's going to let the man stay there. But he doesn't trust this man. Then he starts to eat this man's food. And then when he finds out that there's more food in another location, they're going to go and they're going to get it. And they're going to get it by any means necessary. And at this point, Rick is a very non-trusting person, but he lets certain little people into the group that he feels that their heart is in the right place. And if their heart's not in the right place, he will take them out. And from Georgia, they try to make their way off to Washington, D.C. Because in his new group of friends that he's made, one dude has totally lied to him. And they're just walking on foot. They're starving, they're thirsty. They are just refugees at this point. They're having to do whatever it takes. They're having to eat dogs just to stay alive. And then they finally make it to Virginia, to a place called Alexandria. And it's there they are greeted by a man named Aaron. And Rick does not trust Aaron whatsoever. He doesn't believe that anything is good as it seems anymore. But then they finally decide to listen to him and head to a place called Alexandria, where they meet a vast group of people living in houses. And everything you would assume would be great, right? His group is now well protected. They have homes, they have a community, they have food. But Rick believes these people are living in a fairy tale. Rick, because these people have not been on the outside world in a long, long time. And Rick knows that if you're not tough, you can't survive. So Rick decides he's going to take Alexandria for himself and be the leader. And it's at this point in time, Rick is having an affair with a married woman. Something that is very bizarre that Rick would do because that's what Shane did with Lori. And now Rick is doing that. And then when there starts to be conflict between that man or that woman's husband, Rick kills the man, which is causing the people of Alexandria to question Rick because the pastor dude has told the people who run that place that these people cannot be trusted. These people are the devil. Okay, he has saw them kill people in a very barbaric way. And as Lori, a member of the group, is trying to tell these people, they're not evil, they're not bad, and this has happened, Rick is just there killing that woman's husband. And then he is greeted by an old friend. It's Morgan. And Morgan can't believe what he's seeing with his own eyes because now Morgan has now healed himself. Morgan is now normal again. And he's seen his old, what is it, like a prodigy, something like that, being this evil, killing man. Now in season 6, I believe it is. Yeah, season 6. Rick has now taken pretty much full leadership role or semi-leadership role of Alexandria. But he's not as evil and mean as he was before. He's starting to become human again. And that was all thanks to the woman he was having an affair with. So he's now the nice guy again. But now he will be the person who will do whatever it takes to survive. But he's having conflict with his old mentor now, friend Morgan. Morgan's now this nice guy, and Rick is this non-trusting soul. And so it's really weird to see them two have this conflict between each other because Morgan is telling him, he knows exactly what he's been going through. But you can't be acting this way. You're starting to scare these people and stuff. And, and now Rick is at the point where it's kind of like if there's a bad guy or somebody who's spying on his camp, then they need to take that person out. And one of the things that happened is that there is a bad guy who, I think I forget what happened. It's been a long time since I've seen this season because the show is now season 10, but it goes season 11. And this is season 6 I'm talking about. And so this guy takes off running. Actually, tell you the truth, this guy may not even be a bad guy. No, he's not, I don't think. He might just be a regular guy, like a normal dude. And so I forget what exactly happened, but it's like, yeah, I think it is. I think he's just a nice, normal, regular guy. Probably. I don't know. I can't remember. But all I know is Rick wants to kill this man, shoot him in the back, and Morgan will not let him do that. And so it's like he telling Morgan, I don't take chances no more. Plain and simple as that. If you are a threat, I will take you out. And that's the combination of this entire season. There is a major threat of people who are popping in and out, and they're making life not so happy for their group. Because there's a new villain that's about to be revealed. And as they meet this one dude, he tells them that if you can take out the leader of this group and some of their people, everything will be great, And so Rick is kind of like, all right. He has confronted some of his people before. So and he can tell that this dude, this new bad guy, is bad. So I might as well just take this dude out before he takes us out. That was probably Rick's worst decision. Because that's what Rick does. He goes into this man's campsite, or one of his campsites, and they just start killing these people. These bad people. But these bad people really, some of them haven't even done anything bad yet, but Rick's just taking them all out. And Rick is assuming that, he's taking out their leader and stuff. Well, Rick has no idea what he didn't take out the leader. If he thought the governor was bad, this man, Negan, is way more organized. I mean, way more organized. To the point where they lured him into an ambush. And Negan reveals himself for the first time, and Negan lays down the law of what is going to happen and how life is going to be. And if you're not down with that, you will get taken out by Lucille, his barbed wire baseball bat. And Rick is kind of just like, oh, whatever, I can take this man, in my head. But then this man shows him he's good on his promise. And he kills two of Rick's group members in a very disgusting and bloody and nasty way that was so vile and disgusting that the show had to tame down its violence because people wasn't down with that. And it's at this point in time, tough guy Rick is now scared man Rick. Rick now knows that he screwed up big time. Rick now knows that this man and his entire army will do whatever they want and take whatever they want. Rick has now become a coward. This man has broken Rick. But he doesn't break him until a little bit later when him and Rick are by themselves in this very interesting episode. And it's just at that point where Rick is just like, I'm done. Like, this man has defeated me. Maggie wants revenge for her husband, where Rick's like, we gotta do what this man says. And Rick has now become a coward. Rick is now a shell of his former self. There is no more beast mode Rick. There is no more survivalist Rick. There is no more hero Rick. Now there's just a bug in Rick's place. A scared little bug who's trying to run and fly away. And he literally does everything that Negan wants. And it's to the point where his group is starting to have conflict with Rick. Because they're all like, look, I know this man is scary, but we got to take this man out. And Rick's like, no, I'm not doing that. I got to protect my group. I got to protect Carl and Judith. And not his new girlfriend, Michonne. But things don't always last that long. When Rick starts to see that Negan, even though he's doing everything he wants, he's still taking his people out. And it's at this point where Rick's kind of like, it's time to start making people bleed again. So, Rick has decided it's time to be that leader again. It's time to start building his own army up again. He's going to war. And war he goes to. And he's doing everything that a war tactician will have to do to survive. Some things he don't want to have to do. And his friends are making him do it. And doing all this bloody conflict right before the huge battle is about to ensure, the worst thing in Rick's life has happened to him yet again. Carl gets bit. And it's a slow death. And Rick is just kind of like, he's at this point where he knows that Judith might not be his, and he just decides, no, Judith is not really his. It's probably Shane's child. He has lost his wife. He has lost his son. He's having to raise a girl that's not even his. And it's just like, his whole life has truly ended. Carl is dead. There's just no more for him. And he knows that he still has to march on. There's still Negan to take care of. And you have to think, Rick's whole goal from the beginning of the show was that he has to find his family, protect his family. and now he has let his family die. You know, that's gotta be one of the greatest failures in life ever. So then Rick decides he has to fight Negan. But you know what? After talking to Carl, he decides that killing is just not gonna be for him no more. And he lets Negan live, which pisses off the entire group. To the point where Maggie, Jesus, and Daryl stage a coup. They're gonna overthrow Rick. But before we can see all that awesomeness take shape that could probably save the show, things were happening behind the show scenes. Andrew Lincoln has decided he's done with the show. He's ready to move on. The lady who plays Lori, I forgot her real name. She had a dispute with her contract by not getting paid as much as the male actors, because she's been there since season 2, and some of them been there, and the guys have been there since season 1, and she's getting paid less than them, so she leaves the show. On top of that, the actress who plays Michonne, she is now being approached by Disney Marvel, so she can't really stay because she's committed to them. So she decides to leave at some point. And with the Chandler dude, his character, Carl, has died. He's no longer on the show. And the lady who plays Rosita, she's now doing things with Netflix with the Selena stuff. So she's no longer on the show that much. And so it's just, the show is just starting to suck. And so all these changes are being made. And now we get into the next season. 5 years has passed. And everything is actually going good for Rick. He's rebuilding a community with his people. He's bringing in other groups. He's trusting again. He's the Rick Grimes that he was before the world ended. And the coup has not happened yet. Negan is still alive and is pissing people off still. But you know, like whatever. He's having to deal with some of his group wanting to kill Negan's people. But he's integrated Negan's people into his group. Rick has now built a giant community for himself. A safe haven. Only to have things taken away once again. See, his people are still playing that coup. And as they're trying to build a bridge, some bad stuff happens. Chaos ensues once again when a guy he considers a brother named Daryl turns on him. Because the other groups have planned that they're going to kill Negan and overthrow Rick. Rick is devastated by this because something's going to happen. I forget what. I think like a river is coming in and the bridge is barely like constructed and there's a bunch of zombies. I think Rick knows that. Or it's just something. I forget what it is. This is the point in time where I started hating the show. Anyway. So he's down in this little like pit area with Daryl, and they're constantly going back and forth. He's telling Daryl, "You're my brother. Can't believe you're doing this to me." Blah 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 blah. At some point, Daryl has a change of heart because the writers are stupid at this point in time. They can't write good stuff no more. So they get out there. Rick saves his people by blowing up the bridge. Because all the zombies, yeah, that's what it is. It's not water that's coming, it's zombies that is coming. And it's like by the thousands. And so Rick blows up the bridge. Zombies fall down in the water and they die. The explosion knocks Rick away. Everybody in the group assumes that Rick is dead. But nope. He is found by the junkyard lady and he's taken away on a helicopter. And it's at this point in time where Andrew Lincoln has left the show. He's going to have 3 movies that explain where he's at. But the show is slowly starting to describe where he's at. It's not very good. See, Rick is now living amongst these people. Some very evil people that we find out in spin-off shows. Fear the Walking Dead and World Beyond. The World Beyond is crap. In this group, people are forced to either work for them or be experimented on. That's all I know because I stopped watching World Beyond and I really don't care. And I really don't care about the Rick movies because The Walking Dead sucks now. Nobody's killing zombies no more. There are barely any zombies. All people do is stand around and talk in a philosophical kind of way, and they talk and they talk and they talk for a very, 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 very long time. And it's not even good talk. It's just boring talk. And the show sucks. And that's why it's getting canceled in the 11th season. Anyway, so back to the tragic life of Rick. So you know when we don't even know if he's like a test subject. We don't know if he's working for these people. We don't know if he's turned to evil. So I can't really describe what's really going on in his head. All I know is this: he's away from his adoptive daughter, Judith. He is away from his wife, Michonne. He is away from the guy he considers his brother named Daryl. And he is away from him and Michonne's son, whose name I do not know because they barely reference this dude in the show. The tragic life of Rick Grimes. And Rick is really just a sad character. Like, you want so much good stuff to happen for him, but it never does. And yeah, there are other characters that go through similar stuff, but not as much as Rick, you know? And like him and Carol are probably like the most tragic people of the entire series. And it's just like, it just sucks because Rick is our hero. And we want nothing but good stuff to happen for Rick. But it never does. It's always something bad. His glimmer of hope and happiness is always taken away very quickly. And it just sucks. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.